Welcome back, DPReview TV viewers. It is Chris Nichols here, coming to you from a swing in downtown Charleston, South Carolina. Jordan and I are out here with Canon. We're playing with the new Canon EOS R8, and yes, Jordan is also shooting on the Canon EOS R8. Now on this trip, Canon did bring a lot of really nice professional glass, but I'm really trying to avoid that. I'm trying to endeavor to use consumer level lenses, compact lenses, because I really want to come at this more as using this camera for travel like we're doing today, walking the streets, lighter, more affordable gear. So we're going to get to it. Our goal today, of course, I'm looking for sample photos for you, and Jordan, because he loves plaques, he's got this weird obsession with historical plaques, is going to be searching for that. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm going to do my best trying to keep Jordan focused on the video today, but I doubt I'm going to succeed.
Oh, beyond this point by invitation only. Do you think we're invited?
Only Southern gentlemen, I think.
Oh, that leaves me out in a big way. Now, I do declare that is a Charleston puddle if I ever did see one. Yes, the plaque is fascinating, Jordan, but we got to get onto the EOS R8. So let's talk about the body first here. If it looks familiar, that's because it is. This is essentially the EOS RP body. There are some positives there. It's lightweight, 460 grams, not hard to carry around. I do like the grip. It is comfortable here. It is definitely larger than the EOS R50. I think that's a positive. And we do get nice features, for example, like twin control dials, and we do get an AF on button. What we're still missing, though, is an AF joystick, and that means we're again dependent on using the touchscreen to do things like switch between subject detection or select areas that we want to select for focusing points. Now, a similar body to the RP means we are still using the Canon LPE17 battery. I mean, again, battery life is not exceptionally long because of that single SD card slot, but it is UHS 2-speed. I'm in the shade of the plaque. Am I even in the shot, though, Jordan?
I'm learning about Thomas Smith.
Okay, so that means
Governor of California.
So that means barely in the shot. Okay, well, I'll explain something quickly then. So this is an entry-level full-frame camera. It is affordable. That means, though, that there are some sacrifices as far as the quality of the gear. 2.36 million EVF, so I mean that's pretty much as low end as it gets right now. 1.62 million back panel. It is fully articulating. It is a touchscreen, which is nice, but yeah, don't expect to get a high-resolution EVF here. Did you learn something interesting, Jordan?
It was fascinating.
All right, well, let's also talk about the equally fascinating sensor in the Canon EOS R8. This is the same 24 megapixel full frame sensor that we see in the Canon EOS R6 Mark II. Now, keep in mind that this is not a backside illuminated sensor. It's not a stacked sensor, but we do like the sensor. The readout speed is fairly quick. You know, you can shoot an electronic shutter with not too much rolling shutter issues. However, we do find that I would still want to stick to, well, in this case, electronic first curtain to get the most dynamic range, because when you shoot an electronic shutter, there's quite a hit. Okay, so time to talk about the shutter mechanism of the EOS R8 here, and this does not have a conventional mechanical shutter setup. This camera only has first curtain shutter or electronic only shutter. Now, the thing with first curtain electronic shutters is they do tend to be a little bit more stable when you're hand holding the camera. They don't shock the whole camera as much. So that's nice if you're trying to hand hold at slower shutter speeds. And they're, you know, fine with camera flashes and things like that. You don't get any banding or anything. But one issue you will have in certain situations, if you're shooting really bright aperture lenses, wide open, and you're shooting at extremely fast shutter speeds, you can get strange looking truncated bokeh. Now, that's not the end of the world, but it's just a consideration. There's no option to go with a fully mechanical shutter on this. I gotta say, and I think Jordan does too, because you can hear it through the microphone, the shutter is loud. I feel like every time I take a picture of people on the street and they look at me, I'm like, oh, it's gotta be the shutter. So next, let's talk about your frame per second shooting speed and buffers on these cameras. So when you're shooting that first curtain shutter, you can get about 6 frames per second. It's actually, sorry, what was I saying before Jordan was distracted by multiple horses?
It's just one horse.
Okay, well, there's another horse there. Okay, so 6 frames per second is your maximum burst rate. Now, if you're shooting raw, you're gonna get about 96 shots. That's not bad, but again, it's at that 6 frame per second shooting rate. If you go to compressed raw, the camera's basically gonna shoot like 1,000. Like, it's just gonna go on and on. Same for JPEG. So essentially limitless in that regard. When you go to electronic shutter, now you get a 40 frame per second burst rate. This is very similar to what we saw in the Canon EOS R6 Mark II. This is of course very fast, it can be very useful, but your buffer does fill up a lot quicker. You're gonna get about 51 raw shots before it totally fills up, so just over a second of burst. Honestly, Jordan, back to me please, I'm not done my talk. All right, and if you're gonna shoot compressed RAW with the electronic shutter, well then you're gonna get just under 100 shots before it fills up. So, you know, can be useful for certain situations. And the EOS R8 does have your pre-burst RAW, so you know, it'll basically buffer frames, and when you touch shutter, it'll then record some of the frames before you hit the shutter, and that can just be really useful when you wanna get that decisive moment. Now, autofocus really is one of the Canon EOS R8's major strengths because this essentially has the same autofocusing system as the Canon EOS R6 Mark II. Now, first off, what I really like is the interface. I mean, I like tracking autofocus with subject detection, and it's very easy to initiate that where I want it. It tracks tenaciously, and everything is logical when you're trying to then customize your autofocusing further. This does have the extra subject detection modes that the R6 Mark II has. So planes and trains, you know, that kind of stuff. It's nice to have those additional things. The key thing here that I have as a problem with the autofocus is just that we don't have an AF joystick, which means I'm back to using touchscreen in a lot of cases if it's not focusing right where I want it. Again, most of the time I'll just set a single point to initiate tracking, but there are many situations where I would like to just easily use my thumb to move the autofocusing point over. But we have effective animal focusing, face eye detect. I mean, it really is probably the best AF system at this price point. I should mention one more feature that has been implemented now on the EOS R8. Now, normally you have this ability to bring the camera up to your eye with the EVF and then still be able to drag your finger on the back LCD screen to move your autofocusing point around. I think that's great. I mean, I have used that and I think that works well, especially considering that we don't have an autofocusing joystick. But they've added another feature as well where you can disable that and instead have the camera up to your eye and tap the screen to toggle through different subjects that the camera detects. So for example, say you've got 3 people in your shot and it's detecting all 3, but it's focusing on one, of course, you can then simply tap the screen to toggle through. Or again, say you've got a wildlife situation, a flock of birds, and you want to choose a particular one. So in theory, this sounds like a good idea. However, I could absolutely see tapping too many times or tapping too quickly and missing the subject you want, and then I'm going to furiously tap again to get back through it. It basically just cycles through everything that's available in the screen. And in practice, it seems a little bit clunky, but that is one of your only options for choosing different subjects other than simply placing your autofocusing point in the right spot the first time.
Huh, fascinating.
Okay, so Jordan, clearly we're not going to get any more work done while there's plaques and horses around, so I think the only way to make you focus is to put you in front of camera next.
Hey, it's Jordan Drake to talk about the video capabilities of the EOS R8 in the really beautiful Thomas Bennett house, but unfortunately there's photographers and videographers all working around here. There's a piano playing, there's some noise. You will have to put up with that, and I have to put up with the fact that Chris just off to go shoot models. So fortunately, my friend David Schloss from Dave Tries This on YouTube just started up a new channel. He knows what he's talking about. I would definitely check it out, and thank you for filming this for me. Let's talk about the video capabilities of this camera, and it's pretty straightforward. Now, because this shares the sensor that we saw already in the R6 Mark II, most of those video features carry over as well. We get oversampled 4K at up to 60p full width of the sensor, which is really cool at this price. The other big advancement that we saw in the R6 Mark II is its new autofocus mode where it will only focus on detected subjects, and this minimized the amount that the camera was wandering off and focusing on the background. That's also present on this, and we get slow motion recording 1080 at up to 120 frames per second. The quality is not great, but it's a nice feature to have. We still get all the other nice advancements we've seen recently from Canon cameras. We've got a microphone jack, a headphone jack, we've got the advanced shoe so you can get 4-channel audio running into this, and it can record in the C-Log 3 profile, 10-bit. It's not my favorite log profile to work with, but it does give you quite a bit more dynamic range. Now, the R6 Mark II does still definitely have some advantages. If you're recording video, you've got the bigger battery there that'll get you close to a couple hours, where with the LPE17 and the R8, I found I'm getting under an hour of recorded video. Also, that does have in-body image stabilization, which is lacking from the R8. Now, I'm not the hugest fan of Canon's IBIS. It gives you a lot of wibbly wobblies at the edge of the frame if you're shooting any kind of wide focal lengths, but if you're planning to
hold a static shot, it can be really useful, and that is a big omission on this camera. But I've got a new policy. Anytime I review a Canon camera and they don't fix the small irritations that are driving me crazy, I am going to mention it. So when you start recording on this, you lose your histogram, you lose your horizon level. That's been a problem for years. But also if you're recording in slow motion in the 1080 120 mode, then when you jump back out of it, it'll go to 1080 60 frames per second, a frame rate very few people will use. It should go back to the last recording format that you were using. Canon still hasn't fixed this. Fix this, Canon, it's annoying. But if you look at other budget full frame camera options, one of the things all the manufacturers have really been scaling back are the video capabilities, where that's really not the case with the R8 here. For $1,500, I think it's definitely the best option out there. But if you are willing to spend a little bit more money, don't forget Panasonic does have the S5 II, which does give you a much more comprehensive suite of video features, just a much more intuitive body to use. But especially if you're planning to record 4K 60, that camera has a crop. Most other cameras are going to have a crop or not even offer that record mode. This is a great choice. Just remember, there is a 30-minute per clip recording limit, so if you're doing 4K 60 A-roll, you might run into issues with that. But for slow motion, I think you'd be totally fine with the R8, and it is a very compelling video package at this price.
Well, folks, we are going to end our video on the Canon EOS R8 today, where we began it, which is the lovely waterfront park here in Charleston, South Carolina. So how do I feel about the EOS R8? How does it compare to some of the other very affordable full-frame cameras on the market? And notably the Nikon Z5, which gets actually a lot of fanfare because of its affordable cost and its great handling. It certainly does have nicer controls, a better EVF, and similar image quality. But the EOS R8 absolutely defeats it when it comes to 4K video at 60 frames per second, as well as a state-of-the-art autofocusing system. Now, the other cameras that this is obviously going to compete against are Canon's other cameras. An RP still represents excellent value. It is very low priced as full-frame cameras go. This new camera is going to absolutely blow it out of the water as far as image quality, autofocus performance, and video capabilities. And considering we have the same body, I do feel like this new EOS R8 is worth the extra expense, or do I spend the money to get the R6 Mark II? The fact is, in some ways, these cameras are very similar. They have that same excellent sensor that we love, fast electronic shooting, but I am a little disappointed in how slow the first curtain shutter shooting is. I mean, really, it's going to come down to this. The R6 Mark II gives you better viewfinder, it gives you IBIS, it gives you a little bit more of a rugged body design, definitely more usable for sports, action, and wildlife. But if you don't need that stuff, if you just want a really good hybrid camera with good photos and good video capabilities, and you're okay with the simpler, more affordable body, the EOS R8 might make a lot of sense for you. So please like and subscribe to the channel. We always appreciate that. Otherwise, unfortunately, it won't be in lovely Charleston, South Carolina, but the next time we see you will be shortly with another episode of DPReview TV.